You're listening to Whoa! Potluck.
And hey everyone, welcome to Books and Boba, a book club and podcast featuring books by Asian and Asian American authors. My name is Marvin Yue.
And I'm Rira Yu.
And we are here today for our March 2025 mid-month book news check-in, where we go over the latest Asian American book and publishing news. Rira, we made it to the middle of March. It's my birthday month.
It is. Yeah. Your birthday's on the 9th, right?
The 8th.
The 8th.
Yeah. My birthday is on International Women's Day.
Oh.
That's how.
Wow.
So the easiest way to remember for us, like especially for Chinese, is March 8th, Samba 38, is actually a pejorative term for like a dumbass. That's kind of like the inside joke that I've had to deal with my entire life. Whenever someone Chinese finds out that my birthday is March 8th.
How'd you celebrate?
How did I celebrate? A friend brought over some Tokyo fried chicken for me for lunch and a cake. And then we ordered in for dinner. So didn't really leave the house because, again, I have 2 newborn twins at home. And I don't know if you noticed this, but there's measles out there now. And it's not something that I anticipated to be worried about in 2025. But here we are.
Yeah, it got spread because it's like someone on a plane was infected with measles. They landed in LAX and now it just spread. And you are not super far away from Orange County, which is probably where most unvaccinated people are.
Yeah, I mean, there's the first exposure was someone flying in from Korean Air, I think from Seoul. And that was contact traced to the OC. But there's been another exposure and another case in the SGV now from someone who landed from Taiwan. So
wonderful.
Yeah. So now there's an actual documented case, and it's interesting. I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but it's, as you can imagine, as someone with very small and vulnerable children at home, we're really paying attention. But apparently, because of the current administration's policies, you're not required to report cases of measles. So the actual caseload could be higher. It's just officially there's 1 case in LA County right now. So that's frightening too, because, for those of you who aren't parents out there, the measles vaccine isn't administered until 1 year into your child's life. So we still got a good 9 to 10 months before our kids are protected against measles.
I just can't believe parents who are asking for doctors who, won't vaccinate their kids. And I'm like, what is the point then of having a doctor if you don't believe in modern medicine? And I have my whole ass opinions on anti-vax people because I have 2 autistic brothers, and the misinformation out there about vaccines causing autism, I'm like, that's not true. The person who wrote that report, that was almost 20 years ago, and he's been disbarred, and it's just a lot of fear mongering and ableism and all of that wonderful jazz.
Isn't the whole thing just correlation does not imply causality? But people, I don't know. I feel like humans are just predisposed to a good conspiracy theory.
Sorry to talk about politics right at the start of this podcast, you guys. I would like to talk about a lot of nicer things rather than our planet and our country being on fire. But we are on this timeline and, we're part of society. We can't avoid it.
All right, we promise this is the end of the bummers for now. As always, Books and Boba is supported in part by our listeners over at patreon.com/booksandboba. So if you enjoy what we do here and would like to become a bigger part of our book club, head on over. Our Patreon supporters gain access to our members-only Discord server where you can chat with fellow members about our book club and other topics in real time. And if you join at the Honey Boba level, you also gain access to our monthly bonus podcast, Boba Chats. All right. With that said, let's get into some good news. We have a ton of publishing news this month. I was looking at the list that Rira compiled through her internet sleuthing, and man, this is just 3 pages of deals.
Yeah. So like for those who are questioning where we get our sources for our book deals, we get them from Publishers Weekly, Publishers Marketplace, and then for our book news, a lot of like different bookfluencers online, also standard like Hollywood Reporter, Variety, Deadline, Book Riot, Electric Lit, Lit Hub. So a lot of different sources for those who are curious.
Yeah. How has it been not using Twitter anymore to
It's been terrible. It's been terrible. Instagram is not helpful with its algorithm. The only way I get like the tea is through stories and just like talking with other authors that I follow. Yeah, so it's a lot of like whisper network right now, which is not exactly helpful. And I uninstalled TikTok. I'm never going back there again until they, kind of grow a spine against this administration. So, yeah, I've been trying to cultivate a new way to get news in a more convenient fashion, but it's been a little difficult. So if you guys have tips, that'd be great.
I feel like at some point we're going to have to join the Blue Sky movement.
It's not as active as I would like it to be. A lot of like official sites like NPR posts a lot on there, a lot of journalism sites, but not a lot of book news. From what I have gathered. Threads is poppin', but a lot of it is more narrative based, so not really a lot of news on there.
Yeah, and Threads is still a meta company, and we're so torn, and we're curious to hear everyone's opinions on this too. Like, we want to be where you all are, but at the same time, we also want to be able to live with ourselves. So it's like, I think this is just a uniquely late stage capitalism problem, right? Just like we're all complicit, we're all like compromised. So, how can we do the most good? I think that's what we have to come down on. But yeah, it's a dilemma that we're working through, and we'll let you all know where we land. But anyways, we're not here again. Sorry for bringing it back to Bummersville, but we are here to talk about some cool stuff coming up soon. And it really warms the heart to see so many new book deals being announced, especially in the current climate of diversity bad. It does make me happy to see so many books. And of course, it's still a drop in the bucket compared to the overall industry. But these are a lot of deals that are coming through. And that means book publishers are still, at the very least, interested in publishing diverse stories. So that's a good sign.
Well, we'll see in a year or in 2 years, because a lot of these book deals happen like 2 years before that they're announced. So we shall see, with DEI being slashed and schools banning books and companies thinking that they can just get away with not hiring diverse people on their staff. Yeah, we'll see. All right, so moving on from bummer news, like Marvin said, our first piece of news is not a book deal, but the author reached out to us via email. So here we go. Originally slated to be published in fall 2026, Golden Books released Jessica Yoon's BLACKPINK, A Little Golden Book Biography on December 2nd, 2025. Part of the Little Golden Book Biography series, this picture book tells the story of Jisoo, Jenny, Rose, and Lisa, from their childhoods and their time training in South Korea to becoming BLACKPINK, one of the biggest girl groups on the planet, and their world concert tours. Yeah, so Jessica reached out to us because her book got pushed early because of the BLACKPINK world tour, and she was afraid that it would not make it to Publishers Weekly. So thank you, Jessica, for reaching out to us.
Yeah, I am unfortunately not super into, as listeners may know, not as into the K-pop world as Rira is, but I have heard of BLACKPINK. And I do know that one of their members is on the current season of White Lotus, which is pretty good.
Yeah, that's Lisa.
Yeah, but it's pretty cool to see that, like, I feel like there's been a lot of these like K-pop group biographies. Did it start with BTS, or was it just like it was? I think they were the first like crossover book, right?
I don't know, because Little Golden Books, it's like a children book series. Like it has like the gold foil. So I'm not sure if BTS was featured, but BTS had a slew of books, unofficial and official. The most official one is the Beyond the Scene biography, which is kind of like a series of interviews. So that is like the most legit form in terms of like BTS books out there. But yeah, I'm not sure. This might be the first K-pop group that has been added to the Little Golden Book series.
Yeah, I think I've seen the Taylor Swift ones when I go shopping at Target. So, it's still like, to me, it's a little weird to see like modern pop stars headlining children's books. But if you're a parent who wants to get your kids into reading and books and also into things that you're into, it's cool to see that there's a way to do that through the power of reading. So yeah, congrats to Jessica on the book deal. Okay, next up, Wednesday Books acquired Roshani Chokshi's next YA novel, The Swan's Daughter, a possibly doomed love story. A lush and nostalgic fairy tale where to rule the kingdom, one only needs to possess the prince's heart, literally. In hopes of finding a non-murderous bride, Prince Eris agrees to a royal tournament of bachelorettes and strikes a deal with a Veritas Swan maiden who can separate truth from lie. Publication is planned for winter 2026.
So like a Swan princess-esque version of The Selection.
But like,
I'm guessing.
But like gender flip, right? Like,
no, you probably don't know the Selection series, but it was like a really popular YA series. It was kind of dystopic, and you have a prince who's selecting from a number of different brides, and each bride is from a different district, kind of like Hunger Games. So yeah, like you probably don't know it, but it was super popular in the 2010s.
It is a pretty interesting premise where like you have this like praying mantis like societal norm where the bride needs to murder their husband to rule.
I mean, good luck to Prince Eris to find a non-murderous bride.
Could he just give up his crown, maybe?
I mean, I feel like if you are going to try and usurp the throne, you'll probably kill him just to, cover your bases. But that's just me as someone who I would not be chosen because I am definitely a murderous person. Yeah. So take that as however you want. All right, next up, Peachtree Teen bought Honeytrap by Kiana Krystle, an upper YA contemporary fantasy pitched as Greta Gerwig's Barbie meets Daisy Jones and the Six. Musically talented fairy Jolie has always expected to enter her island's paradise court, but when her soulmate disappears during the bonding ceremony, her future is called into question. Hoping to patch her reputation, Jolie follows her soulmate to the real world, where her new friends and experiences lead her to question her island's traditions. Publication is set for spring 2027. Kind of reminds me of the movie Enchanted.
Yeah.
Because it has like a character who falls into the real world.
That's true. Or kind of like a Peter Pan type thing with like Neverland and the real world. And like this is if Peter Pan ditched Tinkerbell, which was kind of a plot point in the Robin Williams movie Hook.
I can see why they pitched it as a version of Greta Gerwig's Barbie. Because you do have like a character who is forced to get into the real world and they have shenanigans there. So
yeah, well, congrats to Kiana on the book deal. All right. Next up, Holiday House has acquired world rights to Diana Rañola's debut book, I Dance. Illustrated by Christine Almeda, the book celebrates traditional Philippine folk dance. Publication is planned for fall 2025.
So the only Filipino traditional dance that I know is tinikling, which is the traditional dance that's kind of like jump roping. They have two bamboo sticks and they have dancers like jump in between them. I've seen them at a lot of like festivals, but that's the only one that I know.
Yeah, I think that's also the dance that comes to mind when I think of Filipino folk dance. So this book is definitely something that Weaver and I could both use to learn more about Filipino folk dance. And so yeah, always cool to see a book like this come out to be able to not only teach kids about their own culture, but other kids about cultures that they're not familiar with as well. So congrats to Diana on the book deal.
Yeah, as someone who did Korean traditional dance, it's really cool to have a picture book that is showcasing traditional dance from a different part of Asia. All right, moving on. Bloomsbury has acquired The Summoning of Tess Pham by Trang Tran, the author of She is a Haunting, and it is pitched as Hereditary meets You're Not Supposed to Die Tonight. Accompanied by her two best friends and half-sister, a depressed teen returns to her grandmother's remote village in Vietnam to bury her half-brother, only to discover something demonic in the woods that has consumed her family for decades and is now hunting them down. To make things worse, they only have until dawn to break the ritual, or to decide who among them should be sacrificed. Publication is set for winter 2027.
This sounds creepy. Yeah. She is a Haunting has been on our potential October spooky read list for like the last few years. So happy to see a new book coming out from Trang. This sounds like an interesting mix of like Asian intergenerational like trauma / like cabin in the woods, like Evil Dead type of horror story.
Yeah, it does remind me of Evil Dead. And it's really cool to see more spooky reads that are gaining mainstream attention, because She is a Haunting was a New York Times bestseller. So I hope this book also reaches a lot of acclaim as well.
Yeah. All right. Our next deal, Bramble acquired North American rights to The Poet Empress, a debut fantasy epic by Shen. The book follows a young rice farmer who becomes concubine to a monstrous imperial prince and must survive daily court politics while writing the one poem that can kill him before he becomes emperor, but only if it is written with love. Publication is slated for winter 2026.
Ooh, court politics.
Yeah. That last catch is pretty interesting, right? Like you can only succeed in killing the tyrant if you love him. That's a kind of
very
bum
cruel.
Deal.
Yeah. But I love stories that have court politics. That's kind of like Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones-y, takes place in a palace. So this sounds like it's right up my alley.
Yeah, especially, Chinese-inspired court politics because, the rice farmer being a concubine suggests that there are other concubines vying for power through their children, right? So definitely has the makings of a fantasy epic. So congrats to Shen on the book deal.
All right, next up, in an exclusive submission, Third State Books has acquired The Vale by Abigail Hing, the author of Love Vote Taipei, and the book will be illustrated by Yuna Cheong. The book is about a lonely young programmer who builds an AI-generated virtual fantasy world that saves his struggling inventor family. Publication is planned for September 2025. So everybody kind of knows what my stance is on AI-generated content. So I don't know if this book is for me.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked to Abigail on this podcast before. I think we've had her on for 2 author chats. So she does come from a tech background. So it'll be interesting to see what her stance on AI is. It's definitely a tool that could be used for good, but it is a shame that what people actually use AI for is a lot of just, stealing, right? So it will definitely be interesting to see what Abigail's take on it is.
Yeah, I mean, the main character sounds like he has good intentions, and I said this book is not for me, but it's also not for me because it's a picture book. So there's that as well.
Yeah. Third State Books, of course, is a relatively new publisher that I think they formed a few years ago. And they specialize in Asian American stories. So definitely cool to see them working with Abigail on this release as well. All right, next up, in an exclusive submission, Bloomsbury has netted world English rights to Every Day I Read by Hwang Bo-reum, who our listeners may remember is the author of Welcome to the Hyunam-dong Bookshop, which was one of our book club picks from last year. The book will be translated from Korean by Shanna and is a cozy, introspective collection of essays inviting lifelong new readers to reflect on their relationship with reading and to celebrate the joys of books. Publication is set for fall 2025.
Yeah, it sounds like something that we might read in the future because we love cozy reads. And, it sounds like it celebrates reading, and that's what this podcast is all about.
Yeah, it definitely matches our vibe for sure. So yeah, congrats to Hwang Bo-reum for the new book deal, and looking forward to seeing it later this year.
All right, next up, Harper Via netted world English rights to Wang's debut novel, The Chinese Lady. The book is described as an immersive, panoramic, and deeply researched novel about the first Chinese woman brought to the United States, moving from 1820s Canton to P.T. Barnum's American Museum to Gold Rush San Francisco. Publication is set for fall 2025.
So obviously the story is about Pham Moi, who was brought over as a living exhibit from China. I wonder, is this connected to the play The Chinese Lady, or is it just, do they just share the same name?
Because I don't know.
I feel like the play is written by a different... Yeah, the play is by Lloyd Suh. So I was just momentarily confused because there is a stage play, The Chinese Lady, that recently had a run in Atlanta starring Keiko Agena. But yeah, this is a story that's like kind of part of like our hidden histories, much like the story of Wang Kim Ark, whose Supreme Court case solidified birthright citizenship that, not to bring it back to Bummersville, is currently under siege. This is another story of like very early interaction between America and China that's like viewed from the point of view of modern people. Seems a little horrifying, right?
Yeah, and I think people forget how early, Chinese people were introduced to America. And, like I feel like American history has really buried them. So it's nice that there is a whole novel about this lady.
Yeah. All right, and next up, Simon & Schuster's Children's has secured world rights at auction to Derrick Chow's YA graphic novel, I Got You, Alan Liu. This heartfelt and humorous coming-of-age story follows 16-year-old Lucas and the challenges he faces as he tries to support his brother through his mental health struggles while navigating his own anxieties as well as the burgeoning romance with his first boyfriend. The book is inspired by the author's own experiences. Publication is planned for fall 2026.
This sounds, it says it's heartfelt, and I could definitely feel it just from the premise. And, it's hard having your own mental health struggles. So to, take care of a family member who also has their own mental health struggles. Yeah, like dealing with that when you're 16, that's hard.
And especially in an Asian family where we don't know if the characters here are second or third generation Asian Americans, but, in a culture that typically downplays mental health issues, I think having a book like this, it's good representation, right? It's a good way to not only show kids going through this that they're not alone, but also help them to model behavior, right?
Yeah. And I love how this is a pretty heavy topic, but it's being explored in a visual medium like graphic novels. So it is like more accessible to younger readers. So I really like that aspect of it.
Yeah.
Okay, next up, Rise Penguin Workshop bought North American rights to Hobby's Treasures, a debut picture book by Eugen Gray's Wirtz and illustrated by Dong Ho, along with an untitled second book. A game of hide and seek turns into an intergenerational adventure as Caleb uncovers his grandfather's uniforms, each of which reveals a story of resilience, love, and treasured memories to be passed down as family wisdom. Publication is planned for fall 2026, with the second book to follow in fall 2027. I'm curious to see what the uniforms are. Is it like military uniforms, or is it like they were like a firefighter and then they turned into a different career?
Maybe it's all of the above. Like, I think that's one of the things, especially in families of immigrants and maybe even refugees. It's like, our families do their best to shield us from like the unpleasant past, right? But, like I have a grandfather who fought in World War II, and, my dad, served in the army because, mandatory conscription,
yeah.
Right? And so it's always interesting to see pictures of them in their youth in uniform, and those are stories that if you don't ask them to tell you, they won't on their own, right?
Yeah. And it also can be like school uniforms, like I don't know if this book is about Korean culture. I'm guessing habi means haraboji in like kiddish pronunciation, but like my dad would talk about how his school had like the Japanese style school uniforms where they would have like the brass buttons and like the really high collar. And, like he will talk about like how his parents kind of lived under Japanese occupation and kind of had to like conform to the fashion and culture. So I'm guessing that some of that can be in this book. I don't know. It's really hard to tell, but really curious to see what the uniforms are.
Yeah. At the very least, it's a book that encourages kids to ask their grandparents about their lives, which, especially in intergenerational, intercultural families, it's important to keep those traditions alive. All right. Next up, in a 2-book deal, Berkley acquired North American rights to middle grade author Kelly Yang's adult debut, The Take. The book follows 2 ambitious women, an Asian American writer in her 20s struggling to make it, and a white movie producer in her 50s clinging to relevancy, and the secret age reversal treatment that upends their lives. The Take is slated to hit shelves in spring 2026. So yeah, Kelly Yang has been a mainstay in our podcast news and coverage since the beginning, right? Her debut middle grade novel, Front Desk, was a past book club pick and also the center of, I guess quite relevant to our current situation, a lot of book ban conversations, right? And she did have a YA novel, Parachutes, that's based on her own experiences in law school. But it's really cool to see her make her adult literature debut. This book is definitely giving some, I don't know if it's yellow face vibes, but definitely like hitting on the different ways that women are judged, right? I think this is very relevant given, not that Demi Moore didn't deserve to win the Oscar for The Substance, but like the fact that like it reignited the conversation of like who wins Oscars for Best Actress and Best Actor. Usually Best Actress goes to the veteran male actor, and Best Actress has typically gone to like the new up and coming actress, right? So it's cool to see her explore like the ways that like age affects like the patriarchy's perception of your worth as a professional woman.
Yeah, it says secret age reversal. So, I mean, is this kind of like a Freaky Friday setup where they both like exchange places and they experience each other's lives in different ages?
I don't think so, because that would be body switching. I think this is more like The Substance, where it's like they take something that will make them appear a different age, right? Because the Asian American writer is supposedly struggling because of her inexperience, and the older white producer is struggling because people think she's too old, right? So I wonder, I think the fact that one is Asian American, one is white, will also play into the different like perceptions, right? Because as we know, in addition to ageism and sexism, there's also racism that plays into a lot what people think others can and can't do.
Yeah. Asian American writer in her 20s. Like I feel like that is like in your 20s, you're so hard on yourself. And, there's I went to school for screenwriting, and we would always joke that, it's like, oh, if we don't make it within like 10 years after we graduate, it means that like we're never going to make it. And it's sad, but, young, hot writers are the ones who get a lot of opportunities. So, it's depressing.
Yeah, and Kelly Yang is definitely someone who, has experienced the worst of the patriarchy in her personal life as well. So I'm definitely interested to see her take on this whole thing. So yeah, congrats to Kelly on her adult debut.
The take on it. Great job. I just had to point out that pun. Anyway, next up, Viking acquired world English rights to G is for Gratitude, written and illustrated by sister duo Rina and Risa Horiuchi, the co-authors of K is for Kindness. In this alphabet board book, animals demonstrate various ways to show gratitude to one another. Publication is scheduled for summer 2026. Interesting. So, that's a lot of books to cover, because if you're doing the entire alphabet, it's teaching a lot of lessons to your children.
Yeah, all I can really say is, get that bag. 26 books it's a pretty good deal. That's pretty stable employment. Hopefully they got a good deal up front for it. I wonder if they're like selling these books one by one, or if it's part of a whole package deal.
Yeah, it could be different authors for different letters, but they did K is for kindness, so maybe they'll get future book deals on future letters.
Well, congratulations to the Horishi sisters on their book deal. Okay, next up, Lee and Low Books acquired world rights to Don't Feed the Hungry Ghosts by New Visions Award winners Connie Chang and J.M. Blackamore. Drawing on Asian ghost folklore, the humorous middle-grade horror novel follows a death-obsessed girl who is visited by her deceased best friend during the Hungry Ghost Festival. She must feed his ravenous ghost enough so that he can remember why he's returned before they're both consumed by a malevolent poop-eating spirit. Publication is set for May 2027.
Ah, a death-obsessed girl. A goth girl. Love the character. Yeah, hungry ghosts are a staple in Asian ghost stories, and they're terrifying. So if this book is truly a humorous middle-grade horror novel, I wonder how the humor is going to be added to it.
I mean, there is a poop monster, which is kind of funny. And, the main character being a goth girl, I'm sure there'll be a lot of witty banter with her dead best friend. I mean, hungry ghosts don't have to be terrifying. I mean, it's just a general, it's the reason why we leave food out during the Qingming festival. Is like we want to feed our relatives who come back home to visit so they don't become hungry ghosts. So, you can have funny horror stories. I believe in Connie Chang's ability to make this funny.
Yeah, it's kind of sad, though, because you have a dead friend who is a hungry ghost. Do their family not care about them and not give them offerings? So that is a question that the book will answer, hopefully.
Yeah, maybe his family's not Chinese, so they don't know.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. All right, next up, Scholastic bought the first 2 books in Bad Dog Benny, a debut illustrated chapter book series by Maggie P. Chang, the author-illustrator of the Geraldine Pooh series. The new series is about a well-intentioned but misunderstood mini Bernedoodle. In the first book, Benny tries to protect his human family from a mysterious unicorn, but his failed attempts to catch it only brings him closer to doggy obedience school. Publication will start in summer 2026. Bernedoodles are so cute. I love dogs with mustaches, and it looks like a dog with a mustache.
I'm looking up a Bernedoodle because I know what the doodle is, right? That's the poodle mix, but it's a Bernese mountain dog. Huh. Well, he does look very fluffy.
All dogs are good boys, though, so... He's just misunderstood. Why are they taking him to obedience school?
Yeah, well, hopefully he'll make it through and make a new unicorn friend as well. All right, next up, Wednesday Books acquired Where There's Room for Us by Haley Kiyoko, a tale of romance and self-discovery set in a reimagined 1880s Victorian England where everyone is free to love whoever they choose. Publication is scheduled for November 2025.
Yo, this sounds like my book because reimagined Victorian England, amazing. And make it gay, make it sapphic.
Yeah, I love that. You can't really make a realistic sapphic love story set in Victorian England. So this is a fun way to do that while having those Victorian vibes, right?
Yeah, one of my favorite books is Fingersmith by Sarah Waters, and it's set in Victorian era England, and it is a sapphic book. And it was adapted to a Korean film called Agassi, The Handmaiden. So, yeah, I mean, whether history acknowledges it or not, there were gay people back then. So it's nice to hear stories that have gay people in them in the old-timey days. All right, next up, Beaming Books bought world English rights to Carla Tsai's debut picture book, Strong as a Lion, which will be illustrated by Felicia Hendy-Tirto. When her grandfather's grocery store struggles to stay afloat, a determined girl creates her own unique version of a lion dance to bring him good luck during Lunar New Year. Publication is scheduled for spring 2027. Ah, I see. Strong as a lion because of the lion dance.
This
Clever.
is cute. I love a good lion dance. I do feel like the dance is a little overexposed in Asian American culture, but at the same time, it's always cool to see a lion dance at various events, especially the little baby one that's manned by kids.
Yeah, I mean, I'm guessing because it's her own version of the lion dance, because lion dance is usually two people, right?
There's also a single.
Maybe the unique.
There's also
version.
single ones. Yeah.
Oh, there are. Oh, I didn't know that. I've never seen a single lion dance. My bad. But this sounds really cute. And I love stories where little kids want to be like social activists and they're like, yeah, protect our local community, protect local businesses, small businesses. So love it.
Yeah, sounds super cute. All right. Our next book deal, Marble Press bought world rights to Michelle Lin's graphic novel debut, The Rice Ball Fairy, which will also be illustrated by Alyssa Hutchings. Inspired by the films of Studio Ghibli, the middle grade adventure thrusts young Charlie and Lucy on a quest to return the Jade Emperor's favorite fairy in time to save Lunar New Year, thereby preventing the monster Nian from destroying humanity. Publication is set for fall 2026.
Another Lunar New Year book. Excellent.
Yeah. I don't know how familiar you are with the Nian monster, but basically a lot of like Lunar New Year traditions is to keep this monster at bay. So different regions have different traditions for that. My family, our tradition is to leave all the lights on, which, isn't great for our electricity bill, but it's to keep the Nian away.
Interesting. Yeah, I did not know about the Nian monster. I was just going to say it's inspired by Studio Ghibli, and you have not watched a lot of Studio Ghibli films.
I have not.
You've watched a few. But I love Studio Ghibli films. They have like cozy vibes, and the fantasy ones are like just sweeping and gorgeous. So I'm guessing that this book will also have gorgeous imagery as well, especially if it's something that has like fairies in it.
Yeah, but I've seen Spirited Away, I've seen Totoro, I've seen some of the more like kind of whimsical ones. So I'm sure those are the vibes that this story will bring. I'm definitely getting some Spirited Away vibes from it because it's two kids going into like a mystical other world.
I'm also curious as to why the book is called The Rice Ball Fairy, but I'll leave it to the book to explain why.
My theory is this is the fairy that makes the Jade Emperor's favorite rice balls. And without it,
Is that part of the myth? I don't know. Or is that original?
Jade Emperor is he's very fickle. He's a very he's kind of a tyrant sometimes. So I can see him getting mad if his favorite chef fairy is not available.
Got it. All right, next up, HarperCollins bought in an exclusive submission world rights to The Late Bird by Shawn Diantes, aka Furry Little Peach. This picture book is about an owl who is always sleeping in late, at least according to the early birds, and who finally finds out the truth about perception, finding your parliament, and fitting in. Publication is set for winter 2027. I relate to this so hard.
Yo, justice for all the night owls. Like both Ruru and I, we love the night, and so I feel like this owl is one of our people, right?
Yeah, I mean, my regular bedtime is like 2 a.m., 3 a.m. I do a lot of like my serious work kind of starts after like 5 p.m.
Yeah.
Yeah, it takes a while for me to like get my groove in. So
definitely, I remember in college and in grad school, my peak productivity times is between midnight and like 5 a.m. So definitely relate to that as well. And currently with raising two newborn twins, I have no bedtime, so definitely cannot relate to the early birds.
Yeah, I mean, no offense to the morning people out there, but night owls, like people who thrive in the night, we try to be very quiet for the early birds out there. We're just like, okay, it's late, they're sleeping. Like, we need to like make sure we don't make that much noise. But the morning people, they do not have the same consideration for us night owls. They are so loud in the morning. I know this because my family is full of morning birds, early birds. So it's like, they know that I'm asleep. They should be more courteous.
I mean, this world was not built for us. So, good to have, again, great representation for underrepresented population.
I mean, I feel like capitalism has really made it so that you have to wake up early in order to commute and get to work. We need to return to the medieval days where people woke up in the middle of the night just to like chill out and then go back to sleep like really, really early in the morning. But I digress.
All right. Our next book deal is Charles Birch bought world rights to a board book, Where Does Dinosaur Go?, penned by Sonju Ma Damiki and illustrated by Cian James. The book follows Anton and his sister who help their auntie at the laundromat by sorting the laundry in different ways, by color and by person. Publication is slated for fall 2026.
Why is it called Where Does a Dinosaur Go?
It's probably a dinosaur like blanket or shirt. So if they're trying to sort where
yeah.
the dinosaur shirt goes, they need to ask their auntie. That is my prediction based on the one sentence that we got from the description.
What if the dinosaur is like a plushie and it's like, where does this go? It's not a piece of clothes.
That could also be what it is. I guess we won't know until we see the book ourselves.
I like in my Instagram feed, because I am so into Pokemon. There's this one account that I follow that like washes Pokemon plushies and like irons them, and it's like so fascinating. So I just wanted to mention that. But yeah, so there might be a dinosaur plushie. Who knows? All right. Next up, Roaring Brook Press bought world rights to Richard Ho's The Dinosaur and the Bird, a tale of prehistoric friendship, a picture book about the unlikely friendship and mutual care between a solitary Triceratops and an orphan Ichthyornis. Sorry if I butchered that, but I'm not an expert in dinosaurs. And the end of the Cretaceous period. The book will be illustrated by Jamie Green. Publication is set for spring 2026.
I found it. I found the dinosaur. It was in the next book deal.
Yeah. yes. I'm kind of scared of birds because they do remind me of dinosaurs. So it doesn't surprise me that a dinosaur and a bird would be friends in prehistoric times.
I mean, according to Jurassic Park, they are also distantly related, right? Or has that become general, like, accepted theory? I have not followed dinosaur science in probably decades, but
well, according to my nephew,
there's a link there, right?
According to my nephew, who is obsessed with dinosaurs, some of them have feathers, so some of them are bird-like. Which is why I'm probably afraid of chickens and roosters, because they remind me of dinosaurs that, I mean, they're scary. They have like that gleam in their eyes. So it makes
funny
sense
because our conception of dinosaurs is all based on what people think they might have looked like. So who knows what they actually look like? But yeah, I don't know. Dinosaurs, kids still love dinosaurs, so I'm glad to see a book to teach them about dinosaurs and friendship.
Yeah.
All right. Next up, Stone Fruit Studio has acquired at auction Fatal Glitch by award-winning authors Aaron Entrada Kelly and Elliot Schrafer. Pitched as Black Mirror meets Goosebumps, each standalone story in this middle-grade horror series features kids in frightening circumstances facing off against some form of twisted modern technology. The first 2 books will be published in summer and fall 2026.
Oh, that's fun.
It's really cool to see the return of like horror middle grade anthologies, like, because I think I mentioned this before, but I grew up on Goosebumps. I grew up reading, just like, I wouldn't call it trash, but kind of like, like genre
like
fiction for kids, right?
Yeah. I mean, I love how this is like, it tells stories about technology being scary, and I'm like, yeah, get the Gen Alphas to be scared of technology. It can consume you, and it sounds really fun. Yeah.
What's the over under on the first or second of these books to be about AI? I think it's pretty high, right?
I don't know. Like AI, or maybe it's like what else is there? Like ChatGPT,
Coco Melon. There's probably some sort of like evil Coco Melon, right?
Yeah. We sound so old right now, but yeah, like technology can be scary.
As a new parent, I am legit terrified of Coco Melon. Like I just want, especially because of all the studies, especially because like, I don't know if it's like actual studies, but like colloquially, I've been hearing a lot about how a lot of like kids' YouTube actually like messes up their attention span. So I'm like very vigilant on what my kids are going to watch in the future.
Yeah, they have to watch a lot of Miss Rachel and like 90s children's shows that have desaturated colors and won't like overstimulate them.
Yeah. But yeah, congrats to Aaron and Elliot on the book deals. That's really cool.
All right, next up, Quilltree bought at auction A Party for Bear by debut author-illustrator Alice Wang, which follows a lonely bear who learns important lessons about friendship and self-esteem when his attempt at throwing the most perfect party ever goes awry. Publication is scheduled for winter 2027 with a second book to follow.
We've all been there.
Yeah.
We've all planned a big party for our friends, and then they all say, oh, maybe we can make it, or, oh, sorry, we can't go anymore, or, your caterer drops out, things don't go according to plan. I think teaching kids that, like, even when things go wrong, you can still have a good time. It's a good lesson, because I feel like it's definitely a lesson that I could have used in my younger days.
Yeah, real friends pull up for you, okay? And like I think about like kids' birthday parties because I'm kind of on teacher threads and parent threads. I don't know how I ended up there, but I'm there. Maybe it's because I follow a lot of like school threads and education. But I heard that a lot of kids' birthdays, they invite their classmates and they don't show up. So a lot of parents are like, what is the point? I shouldn't reserve a picnic table at the park if like no kids are going to show up. It's like so disheartening. Next time I'm just going to take my kid on like a family vacation with maybe like one friend. And I think that's a pretty good solution to that.
Yeah, I've also heard that parents get in trouble if their kid does not invite everyone in their class because that's leaving some people out. So I feel like it seems like it's hard to be a parent these days.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when I was a kid and I would invite my entire class to like birthday parties and everyone would show up. So yeah, this is a new phenomenon.
To be fair, there is measles out there.
I don't think the kids care about that, though.
Well, hopefully things fare better for the bear analysis story, but congrats on the book deal and for opening up these old wounds. All right. Next up, Random House Graphic acquired Stone Lion by Debbie Pham, which is a middle grade contemporary fantasy graphic novel. When Raleigh agrees to visit and watch over his grandmother in rural Taiwan for the summer, he thought it was going to be an easy way to earn some credit with his parents. Too bad the slumbering spirit living inside a stone lion statue has other plans when Raleigh accidentally wakes him up. Publication is scheduled for fall 2027.
I just pictured Mulan, because
I also pictured Mushu. Yeah. Sometimes you can't help but wake up a sleeping spirit in your grandmother's house, and then you got to just hang out with it for the rest of summer. This sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah, everybody can kind of relate to spending part of their vacation at their grandmother's house. Sometimes it goes well, sometimes it doesn't. It sounds like it does not go well in this story.
I can see the Stone Lion and Raleigh have a great friendship, making shenanigans across the Taiwanese countryside.
All right, next up, Knopf has acquired 2 picture books at auction by illustrator Vicky Chu in her author debut. The first book, Wake Up Poppyville, is about 2 travelers who stumble upon the charming and fantastically weird town of Poppyville. Publication is slated for fall 2026. Poppyville. Yeah, it sounds like a village that probably has a lot of poppies, I'm guessing.
One would assume.
It kind of is reminding me of The Wizard of Oz because there's that field of poppies and you kind of fall asleep when you're amongst the poppies because of like their sleeping pollen. So maybe it's kind of like that. I don't know.
You mean the opioids in it?
Yeah. What a way to introduce kids to that. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to glean what exactly makes Poppyville so weird. But, I'm always down for charming and quirky stories for kids and excited to see what Vicky brings to the table. So congrats to her on her debut. All right. And for our last book deal for this episode, Red Comet Press has acquired world rights to Flowers of the Season by Mishi Wang with illustrations by Bianca Austria. Inspired by the Chinese art motif Siji Minghua, which means flowers of the 4 seasons, a girl and her aunt tend to a garden throughout the seasons. In each, the girl learns about a flower that helps answer the question, what do you do when you're waiting for the other shoe to drop when someone you love is dying? Publication is set for spring 2026. This was charming until that last sentence, and then we're just kind of hit with the bummer vibes, right?
Yeah, it's like teaching your kid about the cycle of life, circle of life. And it's like everything dies at one point. And if it's a flower for each season, I can see why you want to teach that lesson to children.
Yeah, I like that this book, teaches not only about a Chinese cultural art form, but also how to use those themes to, address things like grief, coming to terms with the transient nature of life. So congrats to Mishi and Bianca on the book deal.
All right, so that is the end of our very long list of book deals. Congratulations to all the authors and illustrators that we've mentioned for this episode. And we're going to move on to news. So our first piece of news is that Crazy Rich Asians is going to be adapted into a TV series, and it's been gaining momentum with HBO Max. And Adele Lim, John M. Chu, and Kevin Kwan are all part of the project. So Adele Lim, John M. Chu, and Kevin Kwan, all three have worked on the movie, and they are going to be serving as executive producers on this project. And a statement that they released says, "We understand there have been unofficial conversations with the original cast about possibly returning. However, there is no creative direction for the season, so it would be too early to speculate on the storyline." And they're also saying that the series will not replace the long-awaited sequel to the 2018 film.
Yeah, so this is kind of a weird development, right? Because we have been waiting for that second film for a very long time, and it's been caught up in development hell. I think for various reasons, chief of which is Adele Lim leaving that project because of pay disparity issues, as well as the fact that a good majority of China Rich Girlfriend, the second book, takes place in China, which probably hard to film there at this moment.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
So it's kind of cool to see. I mean, on one hand, it's cool to see this IP find new life in TV form, which I think would serve it a little bit better because it'll give it the story more time to breathe, especially with Adele at the helm. Her work on the film's script really made it into the cultural phenomenon that it was. At the same time, I don't know about Yuria, but I am a little burnt out by like Crazy Rich Asians inspired content, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm definitely in the same camp as you. I'm Crazy Rich Asians out. It came out in 2018 and it was a zeitgeist to, our community, and a lot of projects got greenlit because of it. But I feel like there should be opportunities for other works to be adapted for television and film. It's like the film was good, so why are we adapting it for TV? It just kind of seems redundant, in my opinion.
At the same time, and I understand this is probably more indicative of more of an indictment how Hollywood works, which is in this current situation where diversity projects are contracting, you kind of need the power of an IP that everyone knows about, that has a track record of success to break through. And so if a part of me, the pragmatic side of me, is saying, at the very least, this will be an avenue for Asian Americans or Asians to get work in the industry going forward, because who knows what entertainment will look like in 3-4 years, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Wasn't there a musical as well?
There's also a musical in the works right now, too. So there's a ton of things happening in the Crazy Rich Asians expanded universe. I think the musical is actually, the music is being composed by the person who did the K-pop musical. So I don't know what that soundtrack is like, but
yeah, as someone who has read all of the books in the Crazy Rich Asian series, I'm good. I don't need to see adaptations of the sequels. I definitely do not want to see this adaptation of the same story that we've seen on film and possibly in the future in a musical. But again, this is going to give work to a lot of Asian talent out there. So it is a good thing.
You know what I would want to see, though, is because the third book is about succession, and I would like to see like a Crazy Rich Asian story with Succession vibes, right? Because Crazy Rich Asians is not without their fail sons and fail, relatives. And so if we can get if they can turn this into, instead of a feel good story about rich people, a story about how rich people suck, that might be worth exploring.
Yeah, maybe.
But at the very least, congratulations to Adele, John, and Kevin on the progress. I think Adele Lim is the showrunner, so she is running that writer's room, which is a good sign. So yeah, we'll see. as we know from all these adaptation announcements, nothing is promised, but at the very least, the people attached to this project are people that get things done and get things made. So I think we have a pretty good shot at seeing Crazy Rich Asians on our TV screens sooner rather than later. So yeah, good luck to everyone involved. Speaking of adaptation news, so Amazon has greenlit a series based on the Rise of the Empress novels by Julie C. Dao. The drama, which counts Viola Davis, Forrest Whitaker, and Gemma Chan among its executive producers, will be set in a fantastical ancient Asian empire and centers on a peasant girl named Shifeng, who, backed by a vengeful sorceress, vies to win the heart of the heir to the throne. I know we've covered a couple of Julie C. Dao's books on our book news throughout the years, so it's kind of cool to see her books get picked up for the Amazon treatment. And Amazon, I think, has, say what you will, and there's a lot to say about the oligarch of it all, but they've done a pretty good job in like the fantasy space, right? They also have, the Wheel of Time series and the Lord of the Rings series. So I think it's a good fit for a streamer that has done pretty well with fantasy genre series.
Yeah. So the Rise of the Empress series, the first book is Forest of 1,000 Lanterns. And actually the series is like an East Asian twist on the story of Snow White. And Force of 1,000 Lanterns is telling the story of the evil queen. So she's a protagonist who becomes the villain at the end. And if you have listened to our most recent Patreon episodes, that is my kind of story. So I definitely need to pick up this book at some point. And the sequel, Kingdom of the Blazing Phoenix, it's after after Shifeng, the main character from the last book, becomes the evil queen, and you have like the Snow White figure. So it's an interesting duology.
Yeah, so Krystle Liu and James Wang, who both have worked on American Horror Story, will serve as co-showrunners on the series. And I think what makes me excited about this project is, again, it's really hard to get a show from adaptation announcement to the screen, but the fact that Forrest Whitaker is involved is a good sign for me, because Forrest Whitaker's production company, Significant Productions, is also co-run by Nina Yang Bon Jovi, who is like in the industry a super producer, right? She cut her teeth producing Ryan Coogler's Fruitvale Station, and she honestly does not miss. So with their power behind this production, I think, again, much like Crazy Rich Asians, there's a pretty good shot we'll be seeing this story on our screens sooner rather than later, which I'm excited about.
I mean, how many adaptation news have we covered in our 8 years of doing this podcast, and how many have made it to the finish line? R.I.P. Jade City.
I know.
Would have loved to see you. Seen you on Peacock.
That. Yeah.
Yeah.
And, like the last project, good luck to everyone involved. Hopefully you will make it to the finish line. All right. Really quickly, I did want to touch on some greater book news happening right now. So on January 17, 2025, the Supreme Court has agreed to hear the Mahmoud versus Taylor case, which is a case brought by a group of parents in Montgomery County, Maryland, who sued the school district for the right to opt their children out of using certain books in school they argue are against their religious beliefs. And so this is a pretty big case in the battle against book banning, because if the Supreme Court does uphold this decision, that does open the door to creating a precedent for families to engage in, if not book banning, book censoring for their kids at school. So yeah, not much more to say about this case besides that if you do care about the book banning conversation happening in this country, that you should keep an eye out for when this case enters arguments, because this is something that, since it's hit the Supreme Court, will eventually affect all of us all across the United States.
I wonder what their religious beliefs are, that they're like, I would like to ban these books, probably Christian, and probably they are against queer books or books written by queer authors.
It's for
that is
LGBTQ
my guess.
Content in their books.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you guys know my take on it. I really hope that the Supreme Court will look at this case with logic, but personally, I have very low hopes.
I don't trust them.
I don't trust them.
Oh, all right. One last thing before we go. This is kind of more personal news for Rhea and myself, which is Books and Boba, the podcast you're listening to, has been nominated for an Ambie Award, which is the award given out by the Podcast Academy. So whether or not this is a big deal depends on your mileage. Podcast awards are still in this nascent form. So I think there are two main awards vying for supremacy. It's the Ambies and the Signal Awards. And this year was the first year that, as a producer, I had entered our podcast to both of these awards and was pleasantly surprised to see that we received a nomination for the DIY podcast category, which DIY is just their way of saying micro budget podcast. So podcasts made for under, I think it's like $5,000.
I think about there are podcasts out there that spend over $5,000 in production.
You'd be
I mean,
surprised.
there are, apparently.
Most podcasts, it's like $10,000 plus per episode.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So which is say this is definitely a labor of love for Rhea and myself, but also, now we can officially say that we are a award nominated podcast, which it just feels good, right? It kind of feels good to be able to say that you're award nominated producer / host of a award nominated podcast.
Yeah.
To be honest, I'm not super confident in our ability to bring in the win. I have been seeing some other podcasts do for your consideration campaign.
Listen, we're just happy that we're nominated. Honestly, a win is icing on the cake, but we're not going to really spend our time campaigning. That is work that we don't have the bandwidth to do.
Yeah, so the award ceremony is March 31st. It'll be streamed on the Podcast Academy site. So, I'll be tuning in to see if we do win or not. But we are amongst pretty good company. A lot of shows doing important civil rights stuff too. So, just glad to be. I'm just happy that we were able to make it to this shortlist. That was a surprise as well. So, I think it's validation for what we do as something that is, important, especially in today's day and age when diversity and children's access to diverse stories is in jeopardy. I think, personally, I feel like we're doing important work and hope to be doing for many years to come. But I guess with that, Rhea, congratulations on your nomination for Best DIY Podcast.
Congratulations to you as well. All right. So for the people who want to participate in our Discord book discussion, this month's book club pick is The Stationery Shop of Tehran by Marjan Kamali. And it is a historical fiction book that takes place during the political upheaval of 1953 Tehran in Iran. Yeah, so definitely a change of pace from last month's book club pick, The Verifiers, which had a more upbeat tone.
Yeah, this is definitely a melancholic, sweeping romance about lost loves. I think, we are currently, halfway through our read on Discord and definitely picking up some past lives vibes from this too, because it's about lost first loves, definitely some persuasion because there's a lot of people giving unsolicited advice about who our main characters should and shouldn't be with. So yeah, it will be a really interesting discussion at the end of the month. So definitely, if you have thoughts to share, please let us know either on Goodreads or on Discord if you're a Patreon supporter. We'd definitely love to include your thoughts in our podcast episode whenever possible. So yeah, that'll do it for our mid-month book news check-in. Thank you so much for listening to us, and we'll see you all next time. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Books and Boba. This podcast was hosted by Marvin Yue and Ryu, and edited and produced by Marvin Yue. Follow the book club on Twitter and Instagram by going to @BooksandBoba, and engage with us on Goodreads on our Goodreads group. You can also check out past episodes of the podcast by going to booksandboba.com and by subscribing to us on your favorite podcast app. Don't forget, you can support Books and Boba and Asian American authors by purchasing books at our bookshop.org account. Check out the link in our show notes and also at booksandboba.com. Books and Boba is a proud member of the Potluck Podcast Collective, a collective of Asian American hosted podcasts featuring unique voices and stories from the Asian diaspora. Learn more about the collective and check out our fellow Potluck shows by visiting the website podcastpotluck.com. Thanks for listening.
and I co-host the podcast Asians in Baseball alongside Naomi Ko and Scott Okamoto. Asians in Baseball is exactly what it sounds like, a podcast about the Asian and Asian Native Hawaiian Pacific Islander Americans in Major League Baseball. Every week, we break down the highlights of what's going on with Asians in baseball and then take a deeper dive into the Asian and Asian Americans past and present who have shaped baseball as it is today. Whether you're Kim Eng's #1 fan or you've never even heard of Hideo Nomo, we've got something for everyone, especially for the Shohei Ohtani stans. Maybe too much for the Shohei Ohtani stans. Listen to Asians in Baseball wherever you get podcasts, part of the Potluck Podcast Collective.